What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today is a Subaru type of day, an engine type of day, a short block type of day, a teardown type of day. It's a fun type of day. This is Bobby's Subaru STI. Bobby's my girlfriend, if you were not somehow aware of that. She's a ripper. This thing makes 500, a touch over 500 on E85, a touch under 400 on pump gas, completely untouched stock long block, from the freaking crank to the rods to the pistons. Stock ringlands somehow are holding up. I'm not sure how much longer everything is gonna last. It's a pretty safe tune from what I understand about tuning. When Mr. Baderbilt tuned this car, I know he wasn't pushing it, like he wasn't doing anything crazy, because it is a stock motor. I told him from the get-go, dude, we need this thing to last as long as possible. And according to him, it should last a very, very, very long time on the stock motor. But long story short, I think we want more power, and I think it's time to build a motor for this thing. We actually picked up a blown short block, and we're gonna be tearing that thing down, figuring out what's wrong with it, taking all the good parts, replacing the bad parts, obviously fully forged. So we're gonna go forged pistons, some nice rods. Not exactly sure if we're gonna do a closed deck yet or not. And I have a feeling that we're gonna be doing cams and springs and retainers. And when all of that is said and done, I'm hoping for around 600 on E85, 450, 460 on pump. I think that's the goal. Let me pop the hood, show you guys what we got going on in this thing. Bobby's out ripping the M3 today. That's why her STI is at the shop, but it works out perfect. ETS rotated turbo kit, 5858 ball bearing, ETS front mount, ETS catback, ETS manifold, speed density, flex fuel, DW 1500s, DW 440 LPH pump, as well as the Deechworks regulator. Nothing crazy going on here. Nice, simple setup. Sick coloring on the manifold, but it's time to make it a little bit faster. I'm not exactly sure when we're gonna get around to actually building this short block. I just want to tear it down right now and figure out what's going on with it. I hope the only things we need out of the short block are the cases and the crank. I don't care about the rods. I don't care about the pistons. I guess we need some hardware as well too. So the plan is to build that short block out of the car, pull that motor on the STI, swap the heads, obviously do head studs, cams, springs, retainers, throw it back in the car. It should be down for like a day or two, and then we can turn it up to the moon. That's the plan. Let's see if we can get this thing to turn over. I wish there was a bolt we could throw in there, but I don't have one, so. Oh yeah, she turns over. May not be the best turnover in the world. I was told it had a spun bearing, so I'm hoping the crank is still good. All right, boys, let's get started. It's gonna be a fun little teardown. Let's pop off the oil pump, flip it upside down. There's probably some stuff on the bottom we're gonna have to pull out this guy here, which is the oil pressure sender. And then we can split the cases and check everything out. All right, I'm just going ahead right now and pulling off all of the caps to get the wrist pins out. I don't have a 14mm Allen wrench here, and this is what you do if you don't got a 14mm Allen wrench. You grab a bolt with a 14mm head. As you can see, fits nice and tight. Double nut method, lock those two nuts together, and let's see if that'll break it loose. All right guys, this thing's pretty much ready to come apart. All of the wrist pins are out, all of the case bolts are out. I almost stripped one, which would have been fun. Let's go ahead, pop the cases apart and see what the heck is going on with this thing. All right, we found the problem. Check out this beautiful bearing. Safe to say that guy there is a bit roached. I hope the crank is still good. I think it should be. Obviously the bearing material is much, much softer than the crank. So as long as it wasn't run for a very, very long time, which I highly doubt it was, I think the crank should be good. Pretty sure the rod, I don't think it spun any rods. I think it was just that main. Feels a little sus. That guy there is a little stiff. Rest of these look fine. So here's a comparison. Spun bearing, a pretty wallered out bearing versus a good bearing. Let's continue tearing into this thing. I know the cases are gonna be fine, which is the biggest, most important thing. Obviously I don't wanna be buying a new crank, so let's go ahead, pop this crank out and see if she's all right. All right, so here's the in-depth look at our crankshaft. A little bit suspect there, a little bit suspect there. In reality, all of these bearings aren't nice at all. Here's the rod that had the spun bearing. You can see how heated up and burnt this thing looks. And that is the bearing from that rod. Sheesh. So both a main and a rod were both pretty tatered. I don't know how much you can take off these things before they're trash, or if you can even turn them at all. I know in the Evo world, people kind of frown upon grinding the cranks, but I'm gonna do some research and see. Me being a Evo person mainly, I do love Subarus, but I like Evos. I was expecting this Subaru crank to be like $1,000. I know Evo crank, like a 4G63 crank is around 800 bucks. So when I went online to see how much a new crank is, I was pleasantly surprised to find out that they're only $300, $310 for a new OEM Subaru crank. So with that being said, I'm gonna throw that crank in the garbage. We're gonna order up a new OEM crank. It's not even worth trying to get it polished, or obviously it's gonna have to be ground down and then polished. That alone would be probably 100 bucks. Yeah, I'd rather just buy a new crank. So let's do that. And then I'm gonna pop these pistons out of the cases real quick and see how they are. Wonder if there's any ringland failures. Piston number one looks, pretty cool. Was hoping for a little bit more damage. That piston's Gucci. This is probably what Bobby's piston's gonna look like here in a little bit. Let's see if I can get it to fall out. Look at that. That right there is a typical ringland failure. So not only did this thing have a spun main and a spun rod, but also a ringland failure. Oh wow. What about this one? That one's good. Dope. Well, I know the cases are good. I think new cases are like 1,200 bucks, so I'm stoked on that. If the cases were bad, then it'd be completely pointless to do anything with this short block. But we got good cases, so that's exciting. I'm gonna measure these things out. I believe they're standard bore, which I think standard bore is 99.5 mil. Could be wrong. Of course, we're gonna go a little bit over bore. We'll probably go 20 over and call that a day, but let's get it measured out just to double check. As long as 99.5 is a standard size, which I'm pretty sure I remember that it is, these are standard size pistons. 20 over should clean everything up. There's actually still cross hatching in there, but yeah, I'd rather just go a little bit over. I need to do some research, figure out if for our power goals, it's necessary to do a closed deck setup. I know a lot of the high horsepower boys also do pinned mains. I don't know if that's necessary. I feel like that might be kind of expensive. Regardless, I'm excited that we got some good cases and we can kind of build a short block from here for Bobby's STI. And then we'll never worry about blowing that thing up. I do gotta give a big shout out to Phil. I'm probably gonna butcher this last name, Phil Fusco. Instagram first or last, very, very beautiful Varis wide body STI, Hyper Blue. He is the one who donated this block to us for Bobby's STI build. So big thank you to Phil, and big thank you to my homie, David Dudley, Mr. GTR boy, fast boy GTR himself, for picking this block up and putting it in the back of his GTR and bringing it back to Spokane. Thank you, homies. I appreciate it. Let's go ahead and wrap this up right here. I hope you guys enjoyed. Peace out, my friends. Drop a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. And let me know what you think we should do for the short block if you're a Subi expert. Peace out, my friends. I'll see you tomorrow.